comment on clarity first and what way we need to move forward. It's not entirely clear. I think you've heard in today's panel so far that it is ever changing and developing. I think a couple of things that come to mind really is just, as an industry, we need to be agile, right? We need to be able to shift. It's not going to be the way it used to be where it's set in stone. It really needs to move more. And we need to be the ship owners, the regulatory, the classification societies such as ABS, we all need to be there and be ready to shift quicker and easier. Will we meet the targets we've set out? Yes. Will we decarbonize, or will we just continue burning carbon fuel or fossil fuels with new technologies? The question is still there, and time will tell. And regulation and the application and the unification of the regulation will determine that. We are a classification society at the core in ABS, and so that means a couple of things, right? First and foremost, it means safety. And safety of the crew, safety of the vessels, safety of the assets out there on the oceans, that's at our core and what we need to do. And that's our challenge moving forward, right? We are not here to tell the owners and make the decisions for the industry. We're here to give them the pathways. So if you want to have an ammonia vessel, if you want to have a methanol-fueled vessel, we're going to work with the industry to develop the right rules and regulations so that you can do that safe. The EU and with ETS and FuelEU, it's jump-starting the whole industry in the globe. But now we need to come together, and we need the IMO to come out there and do what they said they're going to do. Otherwise, we're at risk of having too many regulations that differ from place to place, which is tough for everybody in the industry to manage. You see in the news today where there's so many articles about what our president in the US is saying, and so many comments, even today, came up very strongly in my panel about drill, baby, drill. We can't ignore it, and it is going to shift the approach globally. America has that weight, and those comments are there. But I think, as I said at the beginning, in my first question, agility, the ability to shift and use what's in front of us. That's what we're going to have to do as an industry and still try to meet our goals. I really enjoy, and ABS, we really strongly support Capital Link everywhere. They're some of the best forums we see on this planet, and they go everywhere. It's always a pleasure to sponsor and to participate in.
The regulations and the targets that we need to meet are quite demanding, and these are demanding for all stakeholders, mainly, of course, ship owners and ship managers. Currently, the availability of solutions out there are not enough, and they're not financially viable for a ship owner or ship manager to have a large amount of ships converted or built in order for the global fleet to meet the targets for 2050. These challenges need to be addressed. It's a decade that we all have to take action, but we need to collaborate, because simply by putting only one stakeholder on the spotlight, this is not sustainable, and we will never reach the targets that we all need to meet. We have seen the latest years, the regulations like FuelEU or even ETS systems, which have come up, and unfortunately we don't see a global regulation that covers the whole fleet and it's universal. Instead, we see a trend of having regional measures popping up. Knowing that shipping is a global business is something that creates hurdles and challenges, and basically losing out, I would say, the efficiencies that shipping had traditionally been easy to offer, and basically all of us getting the benefit out of transportation good and from shipping and the efficiency we have. So it is very important right now to all of us to understand that regional measures are against the universal profile of shipping. We need international regulations which will be governed and aligned with IMO. As always, all the panels are very interesting with important speakers and people who are decision makers. It's once again a gathering of people from the industry where we can exchange views and always high quality discussions, panels, as well as speakers.
It's tremendously challenging to trade globally right now. You've encountered pockets of geopolitical strife as well as low water in the Panama Canal. But we think these opportunities can be managed. For instance, in the Red Sea, we had to go around the continent of Africa. Shipping is a flexible, mobile asset. And so the trade continues to grow. The trade press is reporting global trade grew between 3% and 4% last year. So I think shipping will bring the trade to where the customers are requesting it, where shippers want it to go. And there's opportunities within that space. The World Shipping Council is all in on near zero carbon by 2050. This isn't a hypothetical question for our members. Our members have over 600 dual fuel new builds on order. So the capacity for uptake of those fuels is going to be and is increasingly coming on the water. The question at IMO is whether a framework is going to be put in place by the global community to create the conditions to offset the price of those new fuels for uptake. To use those new fuels, it costs between 3 and 4 times what it costs to use traditional fossil fuels. And if an economic mechanism isn't put in place to bridge that gap, the producers won't produce the fuels that we need to run the new dual fuel green fuels on these ships and reduce the impact on the climate. So this is a critically important work that's ongoing with a deadline of October of this year. You also asked about challenges with obviously the Red Sea. The ability to navigate the Red Sea was effectively denied by the Houthis that are an Iranian proxy acting out on behalf of the Palestinians. It's completely unacceptable that merchant shipping is being attacked. Unarmed merchant shipping and seafarers have no responsibility for that. With that said, we managed that situation because we had the ability to go around the continent of Africa. But to manage that situation, it was 40% longer travel time. The ships had to run faster with more emissions, and we had to put more capacity online to meet our schedules. And so the international community really needs to focus on making sure that international sea lanes that are vital to trade, literally the economic arteries of the world, do not get impacted the way the Houthis were able to impact the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. And so we look forward to continuing to be adaptable, working with IMO, working with nation states so that doesn't happen in the future, but at the same time remaining adaptable to move the trade. So tariffs always have impacts on consumer behavior because ultimately they raise prices for consumers. Our customers are shippers who are serving those consumers. So to the extent that tariffs impact consumer behavior, which impacts our customers and shipper behavior, it could ultimately be that liner shipping routes adapt and change. But that will take some time. So in the short term, we don't see a tremendous impact. In the long term, there could be changes in routing if at the consumer level it has a ripple effect that changes shipper behavior. It's a real honor to come here to Athens, which is really the capital of global shipping. The liner shipping industry is very thankful to our hosts. They've been gracious, and the Capital Forum always puts on a wonderful event that not only it's an honor to participate in, but we learn from our fellow participants each time, and we'll continue to participate on a going forward basis.
There are many challenges ongoing in the shipping industry, but those have been around the last 3-4 years. The Middle East and the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. The tariffs also is an unknown rather for the time being, since they are under development. We'll see. What is though the issue here is, can the shipping industry adapt to all of these challenges? And the short answer is yes. They have been able to do that for a long time, being COVID, a local conflict, the Houthis attack, that it seems because of the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, will not affect as drastically as in the past going through the Red Sea. But no matter what is the challenge, the certainty is one: the shipping industry, being adaptable and resilient, will find a way to go forward. That's the idea of shipping industry. It's a very dynamic industry that always finds solutions to do what is the purpose of its existence: transportation and delivery of goods. There are a lot of new buildings on containers and tankers, less on bulk carriers, and there are a lot of LNGs. Now, the majority of these vessels have been built with the latest and most advanced standards. A small portion of those vessels has been built with dual fuel engines to accommodate potential green fuels in the future. But still, the traditional shipping, it is done with traditionally built vessels that they have been optimized in terms of efficiencies, coefficients, in optimization of routes, optimization of ton miles, reducing at times the speed in order to get the best outcome for everybody, not only the ship owner, but also for the environment, because reducing the speed will reduce your carbon emissions. So at the end of the day, while there is an unknown which way, which fuel, what path will be the outcome of the ongoing research and development, at the end of the day, one is for certain, that the shipping industry will adapt once there is a definite solution will be adapted by all ship owners in order to bring shipping in the next step towards green transition.
How far away do you think that we are?
We are far. 2050, of course, is a target by IMO. It's 25 years far from today. Will we be able to be 100% carbon-free by 2050? I don't know. It's a matter on discussion. However, the shipping industry and the supporting industries of shipping, they do their fair parts in order to contribute towards that goal. But now the other stakeholders, the refineries, the ports, the European Union, IMO, etc., because they need to contribute towards this goal in terms of research, development, funding, and all of that needs to be together in a collaboration to be able to succeed on 2050 targets for the zero carbon emission. It remains to be seen, but I'm rather optimistic. Liberian Registry sponsors specific events that they add value to the shipping industry and its stakeholders. Registries are a stakeholder in the greater sense of the shipping industry, and as such, our contribution to Capital Link for very many years in Greece and elsewhere, it does just that, adds value to the shipping industry at large.
As an association, we are fuel agnostics. We believe that over the years we're going to see transformation on the needs and the uptake of alternative fuels. So regulations, regional regulations like FuelEU or EU ETS play a role in order to meet down the line the definite regulations that will come after MEPC from IMO. So it is very important to see the further uptake of alternative fuels. Right now we see more than 50% of new orders in vessels to be on alternative fuels. LNG seems to be leading the way, but other fuels will come along as shipping needs to decarbonize, and this is no way back going forward towards the journey to net zero emissions. we are firm believers that shipping regulation needs to be on a global level. So we have a level playing field. Most of the vessels worldwide are international and not on a regional level. So on that sense, we have a firm stand of international regulations. We keep saying that bunkers and fuels right now are more relevant to shipping than ever. You need fuel, any kind of fuel that will be now or in the future, in order to keep shipping moving. So this is going to be even more important, and that's why our association it plays a vital role in these discussions in order to be able to support this transition of shipping towards decarbonization. We need to bridge the gaps in order to have the safety and the regulations in order for shipping to be able to adapt to alternative fuels. As there is a shortage already in competent crew, moving forward, you're going to need even more skilled crew in shipping in order to operate this alternative fuels landscape. So for us, it's very important to keep safety. Shipping has made strides over the last decades to have a safety image towards the society. We need to keep that. And now sustainability. It's a thing that, shipping might be targeted, but we are ahead of the game. And it's the first time that shipping is asking the regulators for regulation in order to see where we're going. Because if we know where we're going, we're going to adapt. These events are very successful, a lot of interesting discussions, and maybe sometimes the interesting discussion is happening after the panels, but it's a great success, and we see Nicolas putting that across the globe, and it's an important part for the finance and the shipping part of it, of how they come together in the industry.
I would like to thank the family Bornozis, Olga and Nicolas, the Capital Link, for this forum. Is the annual, as you said, the 15th annual for Greek shipping, for maritime. Of course, Thanasis Martinos is a very distinguished person for maritime. He offers a lot. He is a philanthrope, as we say in Greek. And it was an honor for us to have the opportunity to give him this award. It's one of thousands of awards for Mr. Martinos. But we could say that the Capital Link always organizes very vast majority of the ship owners, everyone who is involved to the shipping. And I highlighted that it's the first time that the chair of the Transport and Tourism Committee, that includes the maritime in the European Parliament, one of the more crucial committees in the European Parliament, is leading by Greece. And we have a Greek commissioner for tourism and transport and for maritime as well. That means that it's the first time that the maritime, who has been the last years undergraded and underestimated as a main core of the economy for whole Europe and for the whole world, now it's acknowledged for that. So I had the opportunity to say some words to introduce Apostolos Gizikostas and say some words for the guidelines of the leading upcoming legislation, which will start in April. Talking about maritime, we have to focus on resilience, sustainability, and competitiveness. This is what counts, so that we can say by the end of this period that we have achieved the main goals about this sector.
Alternative financing solutions are becoming more useful for ship owners of different sizes, especially medium to small size ship owners. The major one, I would say, is sale and leaseback, leasing houses, especially leasing houses from the Far East, but also from Europe, credit funds, private funds, and combinations of them. The leasing houses, which are quite active in the worldwide market, in particular in Greece, they can provide quite competitive margins with good return. The only peculiarity with these structures is actually that the ship owner is not the actual ship owner. The leasing house is the ship owner, and the ship owner is the bareboat charter, i.e. disponent owner. But if let's say the shipping group is breaking the taboo of not being the actual ship owner, I would say that it's quite a safe structure which has been tested for decades, and if you have the right recipe and the right players, it can be quite lucrative, quite cheap, and providing good financing terms for a shipping group. Geopolitical developments over the last 2 years are affecting the banking sector, but also the alternative financing sector. Because of the stringent regulatory regime, it seems that banking debt will be becoming more and more expensive. And it may be the case, that's the trend, that medium and small size shipping groups will not have the profile to be getting financing from banks, international or Greek. That's why alternative financing are filling in the gap by providing innovative products which cater for the needs of shipping groups, especially mid-size and small size. And what needs to be highlighted is that this alternative finance sector is not closely regulated as the banking sector is regulated. So there is more leeway for negotiation, and this is reflected in the terms of alternative financiers. It may be the case that with some of them, the margins are much higher because of the profile of the actual shipping group, but when the profile of the shipping group is of a solid nature, the margin and the pricing can be as competitive as debt financing and sometimes much cheaper. It may be quite good for the reputation having multiple sources of financing, so a combination of debt financing, traditional financing from banks, but also financing from alternative financial institutions in order to hedge and have different sources of financing. So I would say it would be quite prudent for a listed company to seek financing, provided the right pricing and structure is identified, using alternative and traditional bank debt financing solutions. I'm delighted to be attending the 15th forum. It's the 15th forum I've been attending. The organizers, Nicolas and Olga, have been doing an excellent job, and the rest of Capital Link team. They have managed to raise the Greek flag all around the world, and it is obvious that the Greek shipping industry is vibrant with newcomers every single year, evidencing also how strong shipping is in Greece as part of our culture, and advertising Greek shipping all over the world. I've been delighted to witness and watch most of the panel discussions, which were very enlightening, attending by key players in the industry.
We have different stakeholders this morning discussing all these challenges and which opportunity may arise out of this situation. Basically, we all agree that shipping is resilient, shipping is progressing towards the green transition, but at the same time has been very cautious about doing very risky moves towards adapting new technologies and fuel uptakes that are not mature. Instead, everybody is concentrating on energy efficiency and how we can cut down emissions by reducing consumption. On the other hand, another very important topic was attracting new talent in the industry, starting from seafarers to office people, and of course how you train them to keep up with the latest challenges like cyber warfare and other challenges that this ultra-transitional and competitive trade world has thrown to us. We have to make sure that AI is not taking over also workplaces and doesn't influence the decisions, at least at this maturity level. It is something that we may rely upon in the not so near future, but for now it's a good everyday tool to facilitate our operations only. Preparation of documentation relevant to the local regulatory part, preparing and investigating and analyzing data that you receive from the vessel. It's also proved to be quite successful in estimating trading patterns and the necessities of fleet around the world. So I think we should take it step by step and not over-rely on AI at this point, and leave, as I mentioned, the technology to progress and mature. Maybe this progression comes much earlier than we would expect, but it definitely needs some more time to fully rely upon.
Certainly the industry has a lot on its plate at the moment. I was moderating a panel with the industry shipowner associations, and we led off with a question about Trump. And I think really it's a question they probably wanted to avoid, other than to say shipping's a really resilient industry. I mean, we hear that a lot, but it's true, and that the industry will deal with whatever challenges are thrown at it in this more perhaps transactional world of Trumpism. I mean, more broadly, decarbonization, nature is coming up the agenda as well, that it's no good just decarbonizing the planet if we don't protect our oceans, for example. And I think ship owners love the oceans, so we talked about that. And I think in the context of the importance of the industry to world trade, it's very important that we also support our seafarers. There's a real issue with criminalization of seafarers. They're a vital workforce, and yet they're very vulnerable around the world and are being taken advantage of. And I think all these things together are important factors. And of course, the industry needs money to finance the future. So the upcoming decisions at the IMO that need to be made on global carbon measures are going to be really important to bridge the gap from where we are now, using fossil fuels, to where we hope to be in the future, using clean, renewable energy to power the ships that the world needs to keep our world working. Shipping, obviously, with conflict, with closing the Red Sea, has had a lot to deal with recently. I think that's presented opportunities for the industry. Obviously, it's increased ton miles with the closure of the Suez Canal. But I think that bigger question of can the shipping industry really decarbonize by 2050? Obviously, we're going to find out eventually. And I think it's really important that we take action now. That if we don't take the first steps now, and I think many are taking them, whether it's making individual ships more efficient or looking at system-wide changes to make shipping more efficient, the industry is taking action. Now, whether or not we hit that goal in 2050, and there are a lot of people out there who aren't wholly positive about the likelihood of that, clearly, is something we'll see eventually, but we need to start taking steps now. It's important that carbon has a price on it. It's important that gap between existing fuels and the new fuels is bridged. There's a great opportunity now to act and build the industry of the future. I think the industry has always managed to negotiate the rough and the smooth in terms of what's happening with trade. Ships are the servant of world trade, so we can't tell world trade what to do. We act at their behest. We go where and support the ability, to feed and keep the world warm. As has been said before, without ships, there's no shopping. Without ships, half the world freezes, the other half starves. So we have to keep doing our job, regardless of what's happening in geopolitics. But I think, what is undeniably true is that the world will continue to need ships to keep working.
A lot of people have made a lot of money in the shipping space over the last few years. And I think a lot of people are asking themselves, where can we invest in this space going forward? And that puts us in a very unique situation because we believe the private credit space is where you can make investments going forward and make equity-like returns in the private credit space. I'm not sure there are equal opportunities in the equity space available to make those kind of returns and at the defensible positions that we can have in what we do. And I think you're definitely seeing a situation where there's plenty of capital available for the largest ship owners, but specific projects that don't fit the norm of the largest shipping companies, there is a definite need for capital. And you can't go to your typical bank to get it. You need more tailor-made solutions. which again is where private credit solutions are the obvious choice. There is a change going on today in how shipping is funding itself, and it's probably moving more in a way that aviation did decades ago. So investment funds will be much more important both for equity and for debt investments going forward. And I think that at the core of this are investment funds such as Pelagic, where we sit effectively in between the banks and the clients, providing the total package of financing. With regard to geopolitical issues in the maritime space, generally speaking, a disruption is bad for the world, but it tends to be beneficial for shipping, because as we live in an uncertain world, you need to make sure that your supply lines are secure, and that brings up more demand for maritime services. Shipping generally does better when there's a bit of disruption. We don't want too much of it, obviously, but in general, I'm not concerned about that. As I look forward, things that I worry about is not the global economy per se, it's more making sure we have the right clients and the right structures for the investments that we do. Shipping, maybe surprisingly, is completely uncorrelated with the broader economy. So this is why I think shipping as an asset class is an interesting place to invest when we live in an uncertain world. You may be concerned about where the broader economy is going, but you can also then be assured that shipping operates in this entirely different system, if you will. And I believe there will be investment opportunities throughout the shipping space in the next several years. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been here before, and it's always very exciting to be in Athens to talk to people in the industry. And Capital Link does an amazing job putting on this conference, not only in Greece, but in other parts of the world as well.
We were talking on the panel about the burden of sanctions compliance and how that works, and the fact that that's a burden that's quite volatile. It's an ever-increasing burden, and it's something that owners have had to deal with a great deal more over the last 20 years than they did the 20 years before that. And it's obviously something that continues to evolve and continues to change. But their ability to do the necessary work on that subject obviously is and the ease with which they can do that obviously changes as well, because there's a landscape of evolving tools and evolving things that they can use, platforms and different things to help them in that work. I think a lot of people will look at some of the trades and see opportunities there, but trading within the law and the legal framework internationally is obviously very important, and certainly from an insurance perspective. Where some people do see an opportunity, it's an opportunity they need to be very careful with. We've seen a big impact with the Houthi rebels disrupting trade, forcing trade around the South Africa. So there is an ongoing risk there, and it's having a big impact on what people are doing. Certainly, a lot of seafarers are being exposed to or are being worried about much more significant risks than they have before, and that's something that's always of a concern of ours. Oh, it's a great event, very well attended by an awful lot of people, and that's why we're here.
The greatest challenge remains the decarbonization of the shipping sector, and at the same time, its financing. And this is why, in my speech, I also insisted on a blend of financial instruments in order to reach common goals. This is why I really believe that the PPP, private-public partnership, will be one of the most important tools in order to be together, all stakeholders. And the second point, which I would like to underline, to highlight, is that we need global rules. And we need to see through IMO we can achieve this common goal for the whole interest of the whole shipping sector, but at the same time, it is the only fair way for all of us. And my third point is about the competitiveness of the European shipping sector, which is really related deeply with the competitiveness of the Greek shipping sector. As I said, we have to hear, we have to listen to the Draghi report that the European competitiveness rely on the competitiveness of the shipping industry. So I personally believe that we have to avoid any double charge of the emission policies. This is a sort of priority in order to avoid really problems in the competitiveness of the shipping sector, and at the same time to see how we can go together as soon as possible in order to be on time about the new challenges. No doubt that the new and current Trump administration, new administration, has already created a sort of uncertainty in all aspects of our global rules, in all aspects of our global policies. But at the same time, there is a sort of one step forward and one step behind. So I'm not sure that we have to evaluate the whole situation just now. We have to wait a little bit in order to see how is going the new administration. We saw what was happened regarding the tariffs for Canada and for Mexico. So I really believe that the Euro-Atlantic approach remains the common platform for our common interests, both Europe and USA.
I'm delighted that we have just concluded with great success the 15th annual Capital Link Greek Shipping Forum. Actually, this is not a Greek shipping forum. It is a summit of the institutional and industry leadership of global shipping that comes to Athens to discuss the latest trends, developments, and outlook of the global shipping industry. The majority of our speakers have the unique combination of, on one hand, being major industry participants, given that they are major ship owners in their own right, and on the other hand, they are leading industry organizations, and therefore they have a direct impact on policy making that drives the industry forward. We had with us today the top regulators from the IMO, from the European Commission. We had from the European Parliament, we had top bankers from global shipping banks. We had with us, as usual, the heads of the industry organizations who are the so-called roundtable, BIMCO, Intertanko, Intercargo, and ICS. And of course, we had a plethora of other major industry participants. In all of them, they discussed, as I mentioned, the trends in the industry. Today's event, I have to say, has been organized in partnership with DNV and in cooperation with the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ and a plethora of other sponsors who made this event possible. It has been particularly interesting in terms of timing because on one hand, we have the new administration in the United States that is putting together policies that are deviating from the previous the previous administration, and at the same time, we see, as we heard today on the panels, the commitment of the global shipping industry to continue its path towards decarbonization. Now, of course, that path may become a little bit more complicated, as I mentioned, given that we have geopolitical challenges, we have a lot of uncertainty, but everybody reaffirmed two things: the need for global regulation for the shipping industry and the commitment for the industry to decarbonize. So it has been a particularly interesting forum. We focused on the treatment of crews, on artificial intelligence, and a plethora of other topics that are of particular importance to the industry, including, of course, always access to capital. In conclusion, we had the opportunity to recognize Mr. Thanasis Martinos, the CEO of Eastern Mediterranean Shipping Company, who is, we recognize him not just for his unique and tremendous business achievement, but also for his great contribution to the industry, the global shipping industry and the Greek shipping industry, and also to Greece itself. Mr. Martinos has been a great philanthropist. He has been active in many, many areas. As it was put today, you lift a stone and you find Mr. Martinos under that. He was introduced by Mr. George Foustanos, a historian, and by Mr. George Prokopiou. The two of them go back with a 55-year friendship. So it was a particularly insightful, moving, and sentimental journey down memory lane, and we had the unique opportunity to recognize him today.